When we think of book burning, we usually picture ancient emperors or totalitarian regimes throwing literature into a bonfire. But the dangerous impulse to eradicate subversive ideas didn't just stay in the past. It looks exactly like this today. This chart shows unique book titles targeted for censorship in the US. We see a massive, accelerating spike, eclipsing 4,200 titles in 2023 alone. And organized political pressure groups, not individual parents, drove nearly 3/4 of these demands. Throughout history, from ancient dynasties to these modern local school boards, the people banning books rely on the exact same justification. They claim they are acting strictly to protect the innocent from moral corruption and dangerous ideas. But we have to ask, does ink printed on bound paper actually cause physical or moral harm? Or is labeling a text dangerous simply a convenient smokescreen? Treating a novel like a genuine physical threat requires us to look back at the historical record of censorship. We need to find out who, exactly, is actually being protected when a book is pulled from the shelves. In 1960, the British government prosecuted the publishers of Lady Chatterley's Lover under the Obscene Publications Act. The state argued the book needed to be suppressed strictly because of its sexually explicit language and themes of adultery. The trial transcripts reveal a different anxiety entirely. The lead prosecutor famously asked the jury if it was a book they would wish their wife or servants to read. The authorities were terrified that cheap paperback editions would distribute subversive ideas about class mobility and gender autonomy directly to the working class. We see this pattern repeatedly. Brave New World and The Catcher in the Rye have faced decades of bans, ostensibly to shield teenagers from casual sex, drug use, or foul language. In reality, these bans mask adult anxiety about young people recognizing deep societal flaws or questioning the prescribed trajectory of their lives. This matrix maps historical censorship motivations. Censors lean on moral objections to suppress texts threatening political stability. But notice the far-right column. The moral protection argument removes literature forcing society to confront historical atrocities, systemic inequities, or racial realities. Obscenity laws and moral panics are rarely about protecting public virtue. They are legally weaponized to enforce strict social obedience and protect the existing status quo. Beyond moral panics, institutions frequently target books that directly threaten their authority. In 1619, the Catholic Church placed Galileo's empirical science on their Index of Forbidden Books, because his celestial observations threatened the Church's geocentric monopoly. Similarly, the Soviet Union banned George Orwell's 1984 immediately upon its publication. The state didn't suppress the novel because it contained falsehoods. They banned it because Orwell accurately decoded their exact psychological blueprint for totalitarian control. These historical power grabs provide context for the current wave of censorship. Today, nearly half of all books targeted for removal in the United States represent the voices and lived experiences of LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC individuals. This targets a specific psychological vulnerability, known as cognitive dissonance. When a reader encounters a story or a historical fact that contradicts their deeply held cultural conditioning, it causes profound mental discomfort. The dominant narrative feels decentered. For many organized pressure groups, the easiest way to resolve that discomfort is to eradicate the source entirely. Removing these diverse stories is an attempt to insulate the community from the demanding process of unlearning biases, artificially enforcing cultural homogeneity. Whether an emperor erases Chinese history, a Soviet dictator is silencing dissidents, or a committee removes marginalized voices, the mechanical goal is identical: eliminate the shared vocabulary necessary for people to envision an alternative to the ruling hierarchy. There is a massive flaw in the architecture of censorship. The psychological attempt to suppress a book almost always engineers its popularity and guarantees its historical survival. Psychologists call this reactance. When an authority dictates what you can read, artificially manufacturing scarcity, it triggers an intense, rebellious motivation to restore that freedom. This creates the Streisand effect, where hiding information massively increases public awareness of it. We saw this clearly in 1989, following the publication of Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. The violent international fatwa demanding his assassination didn't erase the novel. Instead, the extreme reaction amplified the text's global reach and vividly validated its power. Literature operates as the ultimate weapon of the weak. It allows disguised dissent, complex emotions, and marginalized realities to bypass the physical force of a state or an institution, spreading mind to mind. Which brings us back to our initial question. Books do not inflict physical violence. They are rarely dangerous in any tangible sense, but they are ideologically lethal to the psychological comfort of unquestioned authority. Censorship is not an act of protection, and it is certainly not a display of strength. It is a public confession of profound vulnerability. When an institution has to ban a book, they are publicly admitting they lack the integrity to debate its contents openly. They are proving that the ideas inside are formidable enough to alter the fabric of society.